We're here because this is in honor of the veterans who fought, died, were injured, survived the Battle of the Bulge. My father-in-law was a veteran of the Bulge, 99th Division, 393rd Regiment. His name was Sidney Salins, and he did survive. He was a mortarman, and he always said that this was the most important time of his life.
You know, these guys lived through the Great Depression, the financial crash, then the rise of all these very communism, fascism, you know, democracies were shrinking and at stake, you know, right after. So a lot of stuff was going on to survive, and then it all just came crashing. And, you know, the U.S. tried to stay out as long as it could until it couldn't, until events caught up with it. And so when they did, they didn't doubt, they took up the call, and, you know, they were going into the unknown. I think a lot of them expected they weren't even going to come back. And my grandfather, thank God, that he came back in one piece.
Red in the hatches and teardrops and branches.
Notre week-end 2024, c'est l'effervescence à Bastogne. Comme chaque année, ils sont des milliers à rendre hommage aux héros de la bataille des Ardennes. Les libérateurs américains, accueillis comme de véritables rockstars, défilent sous les applaudissements, une célébration qui rappelle que leur sacrifice est impérissable. Symbole de l'amitié belgo-américaine, le Mardasson est géré depuis 2019 par l'ABMC, l'American Battle Monuments Commission, également en charge du cimetière d'Henri-Chapelle, près de Verviers. Les traces des États-Unis sont donc légion dans nos contrées, mais qu'en est-il outre-Atlantique ? Comment la bataille des Ardennes est-elle perçue au pays de l'oncle Sam ? Quel héritage ce conflit a-t-il laissé dans la mémoire américaine ? Pour le savoir, nous nous sommes rendus sur place. Cross Plains, petite ville de 3500 habitants, située à 2 heures de Chicago. C'est ici que nous rencontrons Donna Junot.
Hi.
Hi, Donna.
Hi. I'm Donna.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Nicolas.
Did you have a good trip?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, welcome.
Cette fille de vétéran entretient la mémoire de son père, sentinelle du général Macauliffe durant la bataille des Ardennes.
Well, he was a veteran of the 101st Airborne. He was a gliderman. He was in the 327th Glider Infantry Regiment, Company C. He was wounded at the Battle of the Bulge on January 13th, 1945. His friend, Edward Pinnicky, was also killed that day. And Edward is buried at Henri-Chapelle over in Belgium. He was a member of the Veterans of the Battle of the Bulge. Here's his certificate. He did meet General McAuliffe at night, one night where he went out to pee. And he asked for the password, and because he didn't, you know, you're in the dark, and so he didn't realize who it was. So the general wasn't mad at him because obviously he's following what he's supposed to do.
Comme de nombreux vétérans, Lawrence, le père de Donna, a mis du temps avant de parler de son engagement durant la Seconde Guerre mondiale. Ce n'est qu'au début des années 2000 qu'il s'est ouvert sur le sujet, avant de revenir à Bastogne.
So I have a bottle of airborne beer that someone gave to Dad over in Bastogne. Here is his flag from his memorial service.
So there is a bit of Bastogne in your home.
Yes. So, you know the eagle that sits by the Martisan? This is the part of what it was made out of. So the person who made that, his name is Robert, but I don't remember what his last name is. But in 2014, he gave Dad a piece of it to bring home.
Robert Remacle?
Might be. I just know his name was Robert. When you're traveling with an airborne veteran who has a big eagle on his jacket, people just gravitated to my dad, and I was just there for the ride, watching him get a lot of thank yous and praise and asking how he was doing and people giving him gifts, and it was nice to see. I think he felt appreciated, and I think he felt like he fought for something,
Donna cherche à perpétuer la mémoire de son père à travers les réseaux sociaux.
I find it fun to connect with new people and new cultures, and obviously they respected my dad, they loved my dad, and now hopefully it'll transfer a little bit to me. I mean, obviously I wasn't the one that fought, but I'm trying to keep the memory alive.
Why is it important to you?
Because I loved my dad, and I miss him.
Aux États-Unis, ils sont nombreux comme Donna à transmettre l'histoire de leurs aïeux aux autres générations. C'est le cas de George Leuse Jr. dans le Rhode Island. Au moyen de conférences, il raconte le périple de son père, George Leuse, intégré à la célèbre Easy Company de la 101e division airborne. Son histoire fut portée à l'écran sous les traits de l'acteur Rick Gomez dans la série Band of Brothers.
Got that penny.
Got a penny?
Pour Georges, la bataille des Ardennes occupe une place toute particulière dans l'héritage laissé par son père et ses frères d'armes.
Yeah, well, hey, they spent 454 days, I think it was, 454. And this was probably the toughest part. And I think Wintersid goes on to say that. He says, it was so tough in Bastogne, but that's probably why the men of Easy Company, the men of Company E, are so close to this day, was because of what they had to sacrifice in during the war. It's one of the amazing parts about traveling, to know some of the families of the men who didn't come home. Like in Bastogne, you had Skip Muck's family, Alex Pincala. So to meet those family members has been really amazing, because they didn't know that much about their uncle. All they knew was he was killed in World War II. And it wasn't until whether it was the book that came out or the series came out that they had an opportunity to look and kind of see what happened.
L'histoire de George Leuse et de la Easy Company a ravivé un intérêt pour la Seconde Guerre mondiale et la bataille des Ardennes. C'est en tout cas l'avis de deux des acteurs de la série Band of Brothers.
Pour moi, oui, c'est nécessaire. They're really impactful. As you say, the fact that they're spread out over 2 episodes speaks for itself. It was a hugely important and difficult time for the men. And it's that point in the series after episode 5, it's the crossroads. The men reach this crossroads. They've been through so much, and they hope that they're in the home straight, but little do they know what's to come in terms of the Battle of the Bulge, and then beyond that, into Germany itself and Austria. It really is just the halfway point rather than what they think it might be when they reach the end of episode 5.
Bastogne's like my spiritual home. Yeah, it's a home away from home, and you know, for the real men of Easy, you know, and for the war in general, you know, real pivotal moment. This point in the war. So yeah, I think the war could have gone either way, depending on this area and what happened here. So it was a big deal, and it was a big deal to depict that as accurately as possible.
Plus de 20 ans après sa sortie, la série produite par Tom Hanks et Steven Spielberg inspire toujours de nouvelles générations.
Avant Frères d'armes et les films de Spielberg, je pense qu'on notait déjà peut-être une espèce de relativisation de la Seconde Guerre mondiale aux États-Unis. Et c'est vrai qu'avec ces films-là, ça a créé réellement une opinion de plus en plus intéressée à revenir à une guerre qu'on avait tendance à un peu oublier en raison des autres guerres qui étaient plus proches et qui marquaient encore la société américaine. Donc je pense que oui, que le cinéma peut jouer un rôle extrêmement important, mais il y a une limite à cette mise en scène historique par le cinéma. Je crois que des phénomènes beaucoup plus lourds sociétalement, comme les changements démographiques, comme les changements géopolitiques, pourraient influer sur la manière dont la mémoire de la Seconde Guerre mondiale va être racontée.
Easy CP, easy CP, this is Takani. Sis has been hit, and I need a Jeep. I say it again, I need a Jeep now.
We've passed 20 years now, but I think that the last 10 years maybe, that it's been a bigger thing. Certainly what I've noticed going to various events. So I've been able to see that. I've been able to see, you know, reenacting groups, triple, quadruple, a lot of paratrooper uniforms going on, but also a generational makeup, a wide generational makeup. So not just my age and older, but some young kids, really, teens and younger, coming through, which has been really, really refreshing.
We actors have become part of the legacy, if you like, but it's a responsibility that we carry rather than any sort of. There's no reflected glory on us. We're just here to support the stories, really.
Régulièrement, ces acteurs reviennent à Bastogne pour les commémorations. C'était encore le cas pour le 80e anniversaire de la bataille des Ardennes. Ces voyages sont organisés par le Musée national de la Seconde Guerre mondiale, situé à la Nouvelle-Orléans. Ce musée est le plus grand du genre aux États-Unis. C'est même une référence mondiale. Créé en 2000 par Stephen Ambrose, l'auteur du livre à la base de la série Band of Brothers, ce musée accueille 700 000 visiteurs par an.
Welcome to the Paul Hilliard Library at the National World War II Museum.
That's quite a room.
It is. It's a wonderful place to come and find any history you need in the Second World War within this room. It's literally within walking distance of my office. So it's a great place to work.
20 000 livres sur la Deuxième Guerre mondiale sont référencés dans cette bibliothèque, dont une partie est consacrée à la bataille des Ardennes.
Alamo in the Ardennes by my good friend John C. McManus. This particular book, again, talks about the soldiers. You know, we read a lot about the higher level commands and what those gentlemen are doing in response, but it's also important to understand what those soldiers are going through, and that is what this museum is all about, to talk about the individual American soldier and their experience. In John's book here, he talks about what it's like to be in Bastogne during that fight.
Okay, perfect. I saw that you have a comic book. It's right here,
Which one
I
you
think.
looking at?
And it was It's written by a Belgian. Willy Wessel is from our area. So it's quite special for us to see it here.
Well, and again, what's important about books like this too is the most important patron that comes to our museum is not an adult. It's the high school or maybe elementary school child that comes here who doesn't know anything about the war. And so to get them an understanding and a basis of knowledge regarding the war. And you see this book here is basically almost like a comic book talking about the nature of the campaign itself and the war. And again, it's designed to attract the young reader, not the older reader. And this is where we're seeing our target audiences are these younger children who don't know the war, don't understand it. It's ancient history to them, even though it was only 80 years ago.
80 ans plus tard, la bataille des Ardennes semble toujours occuper une place importante au sein de l'histoire américaine.
The Battle of the Bulge holds a special place in the historiography of the Second World War for the Americans. It's the largest land battle the United States Army has ever been engaged in. A lot of Americans see Normandy, D-Day, as the crescendo event, you know, in the Second World War. And what they don't realize is that happens in June 1944. The Germans don't surrender until May 1945. There's a whole year that occurs, basically, before that surrender occurs. And so the Battle of the Bulge is indicative of the fact that there's a fight that occurs after Normandy. And it's a long fight, and it's a bloody fight, and it gets worse and worse as we get closer to Germany itself. And so the Bulge kind of typifies this idea of what that fight is like after Normandy. With the Americans running out of infantrymen, they actually take African Americans and train them to be infantrymen. And you see now some of the first engagements of African Americans being used as infantrymen, as hardened combat veterans. And that legacy is going to certainly reverberate after the war with many of the civil rights acts that come around in the 1950s and the 1960s.
Rien d'étonnant donc de voir qu'une section du musée est totalement dédiée à ce conflit.
With it trying to be immersive, you can see we try to recreate the Ardennes as much as we could with the trees and then the optical illusion of, say, snow falling, you know, from the skies. And of course, it's one of the coldest winters in European history in 1944, 1945, and try to make that come alive with some of the snow you see on the ground and the terrain that we put around it. And of course, we have some of the, trying to put in the idea of soldiers living in these fighting positions. You know, they're cold, they can't make fires because of light discipline, noise and light discipline. And so they're stuck in these holes, basically fighting positions that are sinks for cold weather and cold temperatures, and they have to stay in these for protection purposes. And so it adds to the misery that is the experience of the Bulge, and especially too that supply lines are very long at this time, so many of these guys are running out of food and ammo and those kinds of things to keep themselves alive during the battle. And so we're trying to recreate that as much as possible here.
In the history of the U.S. Army, over 600,000 American soldiers, nearly 90,000 casualties.
One more thing I want to show you before you leave today is our C-47 Skytrain that we have here in the museum. This aircraft is actually a combat veteran from the Second World War. Not only did it drop troops over the beaches of Normandy in 1944, but it also dropped supplies to soldiers during the Bulge in 1944 and 1945, took part in the Operation Market Garden in September of 1944, and in the last airborne drop of the war in 1945, Operation Varsity, as we were crossing the Rhine River. So this is actually a combat veteran of the Northwest campaigns in Europe during the Second World War.
And I think you have an entertaining story to share.
Yeah, how we actually got her is just as entertaining as her history itself. This aircraft was purchased off of eBay, and one of our benefactors here, who is a big fan of the museum, said, yeah, I'll buy it. And so he wrote the check. They flew it into the North Shore Airport, took the wings off of it, trucked it down here to the museum. They cleaned it up, and now she sits in her proper place in the National World War II Museum.
Ce passage à la Nouvelle-Orléans nous questionne. Que représente la bataille des Ardennes au sein même de l'armée américaine? Pour en savoir plus, nous prenons la direction de West Point. École militaire par excellence, c'est ici, au bord de l'Hudson, qu'ont été formés des grands noms de la Deuxième Guerre mondiale. McAuliffe, Bradley, Eisenhower ou encore un certain général Patton. La bataille des Ardennes est enseignée aux cadets de l'établissement et le nom de Bastogne gravé dans les murs.
The Battle of the Bulge really helps cadets to understand and visualize several key concepts. At the operational level, we see the setup to the Battle of the Bulge as the Allies drive to the Siegfried Line, and the assumption that Nazi forces are completely beaten really creates the opportunity for this counterstroke because we go a little bit too far, a little bit too fast. And then we start to see the integration of air and of combined arms operations, what forces can and can't do, but also in doctrine, what forces are prepared to do and not prepared to do. And these are all things that are crucial for cadets to have a theoretical understanding of before they go out into the Army, get their practical education, and then have to combine those two to solve real-world problems.
L'Académie militaire de West Point insiste sur la résilience. Les soldats, gelés et sous-équipés, ont tenu bon en Ardennes, offrant ainsi le temps nécessaire à la réorganisation des troupes. L'anticipation du haut commandement est primordiale dans ce contexte d'urgence.
You look at all the moving pieces as the battle progresses and see how battles shape and impact other battles and how eventually the Allied forces are able to absorb this blow, able to regroup and bring Patton up from the south in a counterattack that he's already prepared because he had the coup d'oeil to understand this blow is coming. He guesses where it's going to be. He's already started his staff so that when the emergency comes, he's already there, already has a plan, and is already moving to threaten that flank.
Pour tous ces éléments, la bataille des Ardennes est à la fois une leçon d'histoire et de stratégie qui a marqué et marque encore l'armée américaine.
In America more broadly, the Battle of the Bulge is seen as this culminating point in the European theater of operations in World War II. The two things that most people remember is D-Day and the Battle of the Bulge. And in the American Army in particular, while here we tend to study the strategic and operational levels, the American Army remembers this very much as a tactical level fight, where the individual American soldier, utterly ordinary, conscript, or potentially volunteer, is thrust into a situation they are not prepared for, being told to hold against all odds, even if they don't have any of the assets that they need.
Pratiquement durant toutes les guerres dans lesquelles les Américains ont été impliqués depuis la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, ils ont fait référence à Bastogne, au mythe de Bastogne, pour encourager leurs soldats, pour encourager leur population, pour les convaincre de l'importance de résister et qu'à la fin de cette résistance, il y aura la victoire des bons face aux mauvais. Donc il y a cette construction-là que Bastogne incarne.
It's a story of sound fundamentals, sound tactics, grit and determination that we draw inspiration from, that we look to say, this is your legacy. Live up to it.
Washington, 11 novembre, jour du Veterans Day. Comme chaque année, nombreux sont les Américains à se rendre au cimetière d'Arlington. Ici sont enterrées 400 000 personnes mortes pour la patrie au cours des différentes guerres menées par les États-Unis. Parmi les tombes, une attire particulièrement notre regard, celle d'un certain Anthony McAuliffe. La bataille des Ardennes est donc bien présente à Arlington. Une gerbe en hommage aux vétérans tombés sur le sol belge et luxembourgeois est d'ailleurs déposée parmi d'autres sur la tombe du soldat inconnu. Un monument est également dédié à la bataille, mais peu de personnes s'y recueillent. Seuls 2 visiteurs attirent notre attention.
For the Army's perspective, it's a pretty significant battle in our history and overall in the world. So took a picture for memory and prosperity. At least from a soldiering perspective, the history of the Army's battles are very important for our history. It's, as an organization, want to make sure that those that serve know our roots and challenges that we've overcome. Huge significance in the overall history of World War II specifically. So yeah, it's important to know even to today.
La visite du cimetière d'Arlington nous laissera un goût de trop peu. Le souvenir de la bataille des Ardennes s'estompe-t-il au pays de l'oncle Sam ? Pour le savoir, nous rencontrons un membre de la BOBA, l'association de la bataille des Ardennes, ainsi qu'un vétéran s'étant battu à Stoumont.
Hello.
Hello.
You must be Hal.
Oh, you must be Antoine.
Nice to meet you.
Nice
yeah?
to meet you, my friend.
And you must be Harry.
Yep, that's me.
That's a pleasure.
Nice meeting you.
Thanks for receiving us.
Well, we love having you guys. We like. You're from Belgium, aren't you?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Belgium's my second home. That's where I learned to grow up in Belgium.
Perfect. We'll talk about that.
I was over there when I was 16.
Okay.
Battle of the Bulge.
You were in Stoumont, in the northern of the battlefield.
I was on the north shoulder, yeah.
Okay.
We were with the 82nd Airborne.
Okay.
We called the 101st the 100 and worst.
Yeah. There's still a fight between the two?
Oh, it's a friendly fight.
Yeah.
Most of the guys in the 101st, especially the high-ranking officers, most of them were in the 82nd originally, because the 82nd was the oldest division, airborne. And so when they transferred them to 101st, why, they acted like they didn't like the 82nd, but they did. They knew who was best.
Pour Harry, qui a repoussé la SS à l'anglaise, revenir en Belgique pour les commémorations est toujours un moment savoureux.
You know what I like in Belgium? And this has always has gotten to me, and that is the little kids walk up to you and shake your hand and thank you for my freedom, thank you for my liberation. I think that is the nicest thing, that people teach their kids to do that. I wish people like that, I wish they would teach their kids here like that, but they don't. And it's a shame because they're losing out, I think, on a lot of things.
À l'entendre, les plus jeunes générations méconnaissent le conflit et même la Deuxième Guerre mondiale en général. Ces électeurs républicains remettent en cause l'enseignement.
In Europe, of course, we find people over there still talk about it and still remember it, you know, and you don't hear much about it from here unless you get around military people.
I feel that it's because we've never been occupied where Europe has been occupied. And because of that, and the generations that went through that, they have passed that down to generation after generation, and the appreciation for people who came and helped to liberate them. Where we have never been occupied, that's one thing. The other thing is, even in not just young people, but people my age, and I'm not very young, but middle-aged people, when you say the Battle of the Bulge, oh, Bastogne. Well, no. yes, Bastogne, but there was a lot more to the Battle of the Bulge than just Bastogne. And because it's not taught in school, people don't even understand. Unless they research history themselves and learn and want to know, they don't understand all of that.
Our schools, unfortunately, in my opinion, have abandoned history teaching in general and World War II or World War I for that matter specifically. There's no that I know of private school or public school that has a robust history program about World War II. And that's quite sad. So what happens is we try to have young people join and they literally do not know what the Battle of the Bulge is. It's worse than that. They don't even know much about World War II.
L'association de la bataille des Ardennes se retrouve donc confrontée à un problème générationnel.
Our group of people are not people that are specifically interested in the battle, they're interested in the veterans that were at the battle. Okay. So now the great question is, those veterans pass on, we're finding that many of our members simply leave because they came because of the veterans. They did not necessarily come because they're interested in the battle. Many of our members can't even really explain the battle. The days that were involved, they know the dates maybe, but the particulars they don't. They just know that Harry was there, Harry's a fine man, Harry's a great American, he's a good human being, so we come to see Harry. So that's one of our really great challenges. What do we do now?
Le nombre d'affiliés étant en berne, un rajeunissement s'impose. Mais malgré une présence sur les réseaux sociaux et la création de podcasts ou de magazines, l'association peine à recruter. Se réorganiser, un problème qui se pose pour d'autres associations du genre. C'est le cas de la Liberty Jump que nous rencontrons à Oklahoma City.
Hey, welcome to Oklahoma.
Hello.
I'm Peter.
Antoine, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nicolas,
nice to meet
Peter.
You. Welcome to Oklahoma.
Nice.
Thanks for coming and interviewing Chalk and talk about his upcoming trip to Battle of the Bulge commemorations. We're excited to have you. Thanks so much. This is really exciting for me and for him.
Nous sommes reçus par Peter Plank, directeur de l'association, qui tient à nous présenter un héros de la bataille des Ardennes.
I want to introduce you to Chuck Charleston, World War II tank driver, Battle of the Bulge. Welcome.
Hello, Chuck.
Hello, how are you?
Fine.
Good to see you.
How are you doing?
I'm
Nice
doing
to meet
fine,
you.
thank you. Thank you.
I'm Nicolas.
Nicolas.
Yeah.
My grandson's name. Yeah.
Chuck Charleston est amérindien. Son cousin était même un proche de Geronimo. Fan de basket, il a récemment été mis à l'honneur à l'occasion d'un match de NBA dans le club local.
Chuck served in the U.S. Army as a tank driver in the 739th Tank Battalion, fighting throughout Europe, including the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah, I don't remember being depressed, and I know I hear a lot of like people that were in the Vietnam War and the Korean, and it was bad, it was terrible. But for some reason or other, those of us, most of us that was in my outfit, we hardly ever felt downtrodden, you know. We were always kind of upbeat. And when we'd get together, we'd just laugh and enjoy each other, you know, get back in that tank and take off again.
Chaque année, Peter et son association emmènent des vétérans de la Seconde Guerre mondiale sur le terrain de leurs exploits en Europe. Lors de notre rencontre, Chuck se préparait d'ailleurs à revenir pour la première fois à Bastogne, à l'occasion du 80e anniversaire de la bataille des Ardennes.
20 years ago, we were taking families. We were taking the veteran and their wives. Well, now most of them have outlived their spouses. another 2 or 3 more years, we'll find that they're not going to be physically able to make that trip. So each year is more important than the next because we still have veterans that are physically able to go there, just like Chalk. And we're teaching the younger generation. And one of our visits next month will be at the school in Noville. And you know, the fact that the children in Noville have, they know what liberation's all about because they've been taught it by their families. So we just keep that memory alive, keep the history alive, and until we find them they're physically not able to go anymore.
I'm looking forward to meeting the children. I think that'll be wonderful, and I'll take my war bonnet with me, and hopefully that the young children will get an opportunity to see an American Indian, because I don't think that there are very many in Belgium.
Peter, how do you see your organization and the travel you will make in a few years, 5, 10 years from now?
We've talked about that. I think we'll move into jump operation, honoring the Korean War veterans, and then ultimately a jump operation honoring the Vietnam veterans. We'll continue to go to Europe. I think we'll be taking families of veterans. I think our host families over there will open their homes up to veterans' families. So I think we might continue an operation in France in June, Holland in September, Belgium in December, but we may be taking families instead of the veterans.
It's important to keep the memory going. Do you see that younger generation forget about what happened in Europe in World War II?
You know, over here, the younger generation, they don't know because they're not, unless you're a family member of a World War II veteran, you don't learn it in school. Whereas in Europe, the reason why they love their liberators is because they've been occupied. All of Europe's been occupied, World War I, World War II, and they've experienced true liberation, at least twice. So they're teaching that to the younger generation because they lived it.
La composition, je dirais, ethnique, par exemple, de la population américaine, influe sur la mémoire. Aujourd'hui, il y a une partie importante de la population américaine qui vient d'Amérique latine. C'est une population qui n'a pas été réellement touchée par cette partie de l'histoire. Comme la population d'origine européenne pourrait devenir à terme minoritaire par rapport à d'autres populations, on pourrait penser que la manière dont s'enseigne l'histoire ou la manière dont on se rappelle de l'histoire aux États-Unis va changer. Plus spécifiquement, la bataille des Ardennes pourrait un peu s'effacer.
L'enseignement de la Seconde Guerre mondiale n'est néanmoins pas négligé partout aux États-Unis. Les murs d'une université en particulier sont imprégnés de ce conflit. On y transmet des valeurs de loyauté, d'abnégation, d'intégrité, dignes des anciens combattants. Découvrons ensemble l'université Texas A&M.
Texas A&M was a land-grant school, which means it was set up for the public and to create engineers and students and agriculture to work to help the economy. But one big, very important part is they all received military training because of the way that it was established under the government. And so as a result of that, throughout the early, since it was founded in 1876, all the students were in the military, but then they basically went into the reserve force as citizen soldiers if they were not going to go in the military. So as the 30s unfolded, clearly there were activities happening where they realized there were problems in Europe in 39 and 40. the president came here, President Roosevelt, and says, you know, we don't know what's going to happen, but we might need your help.
Il y a 80 ans, 20 000 étudiants surnommés Aggies ont été envoyés sur le front, dont celui des Ardennes. Aujourd'hui, les vétérans sont toujours commémorés au sein même du campus.
So you'll notice that the music has stopped in this area. We like to keep this part of the Memorial Student Center quiet. It honors our lost Aggies. So this is the Aggies Lost in Service Memorial. It includes every name of every Aggie who has died in military service since World War II. So we have another memorial inside the honor entrance down here that commemorates soldiers who died in World War II who are Aggies. So this one starts in 1945 all the way through today. So it has, by day of death, everyone's name on the wall here. And on this side of the Hall of Honor, we have 8 Aggies who were awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor, which is the highest honor in military service. We have 8 recipients here, and this hallway is just meant to commemorate their ultimate sacrifice and the acts of bravery that they received the Medal of Honor for.
L'université est implantée à College Station, ville jumelée avec sa voisine de Bryan. Toutes deux ont noué des liens très forts avec Bastogne, un partenariat qui s'est traduit par l'exposition et le spectacle Texas Aggies Go to War. Un partenariat qui se poursuit aujourd'hui pour les étudiants et le musée du GI.
John Adams, good to see you.
Okay.
Pleasure's all. Welcome to Texas. The students get academic credit, so they go there, and the first thing is they take classes. They either take French or German or whatever, so language is a critical thing. Second thing is they get major tours of the major military sites and battlefield. And number 3, many of them live with families there. They have a better appreciation of the culture and the activities.
When you're there and you're in the woods, or you see the remaining foxholes, you see the remains of the war, you can actually put yourself in the place of the people that fought there, and then all of a sudden you understand.
Well, I'll tell you what amazes us. I got to tell you, we go into the pizza place. What's the name of the place? Still there? Georgie. So we're there, and the lady comes over to wait on us. She's about 14 or 15 years old, okay? So her English is very good. She's talking, obviously, student. And she starts talking about Bastogne and about the history and Americans. And that her grandfather was here and her family. And we're sitting there. And you see, that is such an impressive thing because we take our students there so they can understand and be there. Because here's a kid, a granddaughter of people who was not even there. And she's working in a pizza place. And so that means in school, in the tradition, and whatever you're doing there, the nuts celebration and everything. People don't know what that is here. Mm-hmm. I mean, we do. We're involved with it. But you can go with a $100 bill now on campus and say, "Tell me about the nuts celebration at Bastogne." You'll save your $100 bill, but when they get there and they hear the story, and they get to see what goes on, and that connection is made. So that's what we want to spread and kind of keep the tradition and the connection alive. Many of our students have never been out of Texas. Many of the students that come from Belgium have only been in Belgium or France, the Benelux area. So that relationship has been very, very important going forward in the future.
Le Texas, deuxième plus grande économie des États-Unis. L'Agence wallonne de l'exportation s'y est établie pour collaborer en matière de recherche médicale, de biotechnologie et d'aérospatiale. Une relation qui s'est construite sur ce passé commun que partagent les deux régions.
Enchanté.
Bonjour Nicolas. Philippe, enchanté. Non, très certainement une porte d'entrée parce que ça nous a permis d'avoir des liens très profonds avec cette région et avec l'université Texas A&M qui est basée à College Station à 2 minutes d'ici, qui est la plus grande université du Texas. Et donc ce lien d'amitié, qui relie en fait les Américains qui sont venus finalement nous sauver à la fin de la Seconde Guerre mondiale, permet de créer des projets ici avec une relation d'amitié qu'on pourrait ne pas avoir s'il n'y avait pas ce lien. Oui. On s'en sert en tant que friendship agreement, en tant que... Je sais bien qu'il y a un partenariat entre la ville de Bastogne, par exemple, et College Station, mais tout ça permet d'avoir une relation où on passe un peu le cap de l'inconnu et qu'on est des amis. Et donc quand on collabore en tant qu'amis dans le business, on va plus loin.
Une amitié confirmée par les deux mères.
Hello, how are you? Bobby, very nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you. So I've been to Belgium 2 times now, and Bastogne 2 times as well. We went to the anniversaries of the Battle of the Bulge and the opening of the museum. When we were there for the opening of that, the Aggies went go to war. Phenomenal exhibit. It was very heartfelt to see what's happened, to see where Belgium was back there during the war and Bastogne, where the rebuild of it and everything. The reenactments were great. All the different stuff. The museums over there are fantastic. So it's just a special place. I mean, it's a very special place for the city of Bryan and College Station, Texas A&M, everything that's gone into that. It's been great.
Well, I think all of those connections that have been made through this Aggies Go to War event and experiences had led to a lot of dialogue and then business partnerships between businesses here in Brazos County and College Station and Bryan with businesses in the region of Wallonia and Belgium, which was really more of a celebration of the big events that were there and the remembrance aspect of it. But we're looking to the future now.
Regarder vers le futur sans oublier l'histoire. La bataille des Ardennes a permis de créer du lien et annonce aujourd'hui d'autres collaborations, d'autres opportunités au-delà du souvenir. Un héritage néanmoins plus localisé, moins prégnant au sein de la jeunesse et donc de la société.
Quand je parle avec des Américains beaucoup plus jeunes, je sens quand même une relativisation de la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, parce que pour eux, les guerres qui les ont le plus marquées, c'est la guerre, soit la guerre au Vietnam pour ceux qui ont cinquantaine d'années, ou ce sont les dernières guerres en Irak, au Moyen-Orient. Ce sont ces guerres-là qui les ont le plus marquées et qui dominent aujourd'hui l'actualité internationale. Que donc l'intérêt pour l'Asie, la Chine d'un côté, l'intérêt pour le Moyen-Orient, avec aussi tout ce qui tourne autour de la communauté juive américaine et la communauté arabo-musulmane américaine, ce sont des éléments qui, en partie, occupent l'économie de l'attention, si je veux dire. Donc les gens ont un certain nombre de minutes par jour pendant lesquelles ils s'intéressent à l'actualité ou s'intéressent à l'histoire. Eh bien, je pense que l'évolution lourde me semble pointer vers je ne dirais pas une disparition du tout, mais pour une relativisation de la mémoire de la Seconde Guerre mondiale, de la bataille des Ardennes et de Bastogne, peut-être, dans les prochaines années.